Dum de dum dum. I love it. Checkity check check. Audio's working good. Video's working good. If a little delayed, does it have a slight? Feels like a stutter step, but I'm not sure if it would just be my machine's bandwidth or what. Hard to know. I edited one of these streams today just for fun where I like cut out this exact part, this beginning cheesy dumb part, and I like audio recorded what's gonna happen in the video, which seemed like a nice move on it, perhaps. Faded to black at the end. It was kind of perfect in that way. How do I have this going? I go typical. There's my turtle guy. Because I'm just showing arc, not current application, which I would be like Discord or whatever. But if I just say, is current application more fun? Don't know. I'm going to explicitly show Mr. Turtle for now. Move myself up a little bit. Okay. I'm going to get going on this. I just have a bunch of things that we left kind of half done or that could be a little bit better, and I thought I would just stream today to deal with those few things. Huh? Sound good? I love it. I love it. Okay. The this just felt very repetitive to me. This is this is the core learning of this particular experiment was that it turns out if you apply multiple transforms to two things like in CSS, I'm gonna write it out quick. If we were to transform this thing, transform, and then we were to say translate X 50 pixels, it's gonna freaking translate X 50 pixels. It's gonna move over a little bit, 50 pixels over, and then we can rotate it 30 degrees, and it's going to do both of those two things because that's how it works. But then if I translate X again 100 pixels, it moves like in the direction of that rotation, which was just very cool and surprising to me. So what we did when we made Mr. Turtle was that we just had this accumulated styles string, and as you click these buttons, it just keeps plunking on these additional values, and Mr. Turtle, with a little transition on himself, did that. So you can move forward, move backwards, rotate Mr. Turtle, and it was a little bit like a Lego logo thing from my youth. But I thought, well, if I'm just gonna like call this thing done, this is awfully repetitive code, all this event listeners and buttons and stuff. I thought we could just go like const buttons equals query selector all button, which is of course on the document, and then loop over all those buttons and try to do something a little more dry, right? So buttons dot for each button, we want to do button dot add event listener, click, and then do this thing. Accumulated styles plus equals what? So if we comment all those out, what is different about all these? Well, now we've looped over them, but the only thing that's different is which one of these constants it uses. So it feels like if on the buttons in the HTML, we just told it somehow, it would be like data movement equals, And so move, and I did call this move forward and move back because it feels like more nice, because it isn't always right and left, because the transforming, that was kind of the point of the whole thing. So maybe I'll just say, but I'll leave them right and left here as constants because they are in the x value and positive and negative. So it just seems reasonable there. So forward becomes move right, and this is move left, and rotate clockwise and counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get away with that on the reset, because that's just, it's different in what it needs to do, doesn't it? Okay, so then we can't just look for all buttons. Then we have to look for buttons that have data movement on them. That's fine as an attribute. And then instead of move right, it would be button.dataset.movement. Is that, but that's going to be like a string and probably not going to work, right? Because what we need is to reference this constant by the name. How would you possibly do that? Like, you have a string value and you need to reference a constant that exists. Maybe they shouldn't be constants, but it should be like an array of keys, and then the string value could be the key or something. Movement is an array, and then we could pick these up and put them inside here, and then like move right is that like even realistic? Move left. So these become commas or nothing and not constants. I actually just don't know if that will work, but maybe. So then this becomes movement with the string that we pull off of it, like that. Is that gonna work? Why wouldn't it? You don't like something. Invalid shorthand property initializer at line 6, right there. What do we do wrong? Oh, these gotta be these things. That's a valid object, isn't it? It seems like a valid object. It just looks weird to me, but I think it will work. Yeah, heck yeah. Look at Mr. Turtle. Freaking cruising. I love Mr. Turtle. He's my best friend. Like from Tires. Do y'all watch Tires? That was pretty funny. So we don't need that anymore. We wrote all of that code. We refactored to this little bad boy and put the information in there. But then we didn't deal with reset, did we? So reset, I shouldn't have deleted all of them. We still need that one, which feels fair. Doesn't it? And reset still has this ID on it, so if we move, and then reset, it should just still work, right? Heck yeah, it does. Come on, Mr. Turtle. You're cruising. Dang, that feels pretty satisfying. The other thing I was going to do, and I think I chucked a thing in there, is called output instructions. So if we did like output, it could also have a, like the header. Yeah. Background black, padding 1 rem. Am I going to see a black line across the bottom? I probably should. Yes. Because I made the whole body display flex column. So it's this element, the header, this whole main area, which is flex 1, pushing everything else away from it, and the output down here. And the output, I thought, could be like here, font family monospace or whatever. It could be code, color white. That as we are accumulating these styles, we would say output. What did I call that? What's the ID on the output? Instructions. Instructions dot inner HTML, or inner text is maybe safer, is equal to, so it just totally resets itself to accumulated styles. Well, that's satisfying that the length of those two are exactly the same, so the equal signs line up. That's really nice. And that could just be reset to an empty string as well. So now as I move forward, it tells me what's happening. It's translate X. And then I rotate it. And then I move forward again. It's showing us what the transform is on Mr. Turtle. And then I reset it and they all go away. That's satisfying to me, because that was kind of the point of this whole journey, is that Mr. Turtle, the final placement of Mr. Turtle is like an amalgamation of just all of this crap. That's a legitimate transform that happens to Mr. Turtle. And as we learned, I think yesterday, is that if you get computed style on Mr. Turtle, it doesn't look like this. It turns into one single matrix transform that has them all there, which is like fair enough, sort of. So is that good enough for Mr. Turtle then? Would you expect more? Should we call him something? Mr. Turtle. The multi-transform. What's another good T word? It's pterodactyl. Well, they're not a reptile, they're amphibians. There's no good T word in there. Hero. Fair enough. I don't mind that his head is on top today. I wanted it to be on the bottom yesterday, and now I don't care. Kind of fine. Is that triggering a scroll bar? Is that what's... Oh no, this thing just keeps getting taller and taller when we add stuff to it. We don't really want scroll bars though, so we'll whip those off of there. Just clip it, yo. Gone. Now if you go off, Mr. Turtle, it's your problem. You're not triggering no scroll bars. Okay, cool. So Mr. Turtle's done. And just to refresh my brain, is I saw a presentation about that involved animation composition, and animation composition was confusing, but we figured it out. I'm not going to rehash it for the third time. But it has this nature to it where if you already have transforms on it, that different things happen as you apply more transforms, and those more transforms don't come necessarily by altering what's already there, but they come from keyframes. So the combination of like space separated value things that come from keyframes get applied in different ways. And it's true of transforms and translates. It's true of filters, and that's all we know yet. So thought that was interesting, and that it kind of had some sync with Josh's article about partial keyframes, where he's like, I could have a fade to transparent name, but in this at some point he has like multiple keyframes that all have like different pretty small values, like here's twinkle and here's fade transparent, and you can apply them both. And somehow in my mind, animation composition was like what happened when you apply multiple keyframes, and it turns out that was wrong. It's not really true, but it did make me think that this is kind of a cool way to work, is that you could have a bunch of keyframes that do really single specific things, you know, like the tailwind of keyframes or something, and then kind of compose them together to make the ultimate effect you want, even though that really doesn't have much to do with animation composition. It is kind of like you're composing animations, so there's just a little sync between that. And that if they happen to involve filters or transforms, then animation composition does sort of matter. So we played with it in this way, where there was different transforms being applied, but when I was learning this way, and so we were applying bob and sway and nod and all that stuff, which is fun, and ended up with this pretty nice thing. I know my head is in the way of this little bobby guy. I think that's kind of fun, but because we used translate and rotate and stuff, we didn't use transform. These are a little bit irrelevant. They can't really compose together, because rotate can't take multiple values, you know. Transform rotate can, but rotate can't. So that was a heck of a weird thing. So this has just been a weird journey of learning, and culminating in Mr. Turtle, which has nothing to do with keyframe animations in the end. So pretty funky. And then we, along the way, learned that, you know, that like transforms, blurs are, or whatever other kind of filters, have the same kind of space separated list concept. and that it just gets really weird and funny. So that was like a big journey, and I'm still not 100% sure like what I want to like say about that. If I was going to turn that into a blog post, it would be really sprawling and confusing and jumpy all overy, and I think I would enjoy it in the end, but it's the kind of blog post that probably nobody cares about, but maybe. So I want to put that to bed. Now that Mr. Turtle's done, I will not stream upon this concept anymore. Another thing that we didn't quite finish or get to, that maybe with some fresh eyes we could get to, was this idea of anchor positioning. And I think this is the thing that's being anchored position. We made a button. When you open the button, it pops open a thing. We did not use the pop over API to do this. We totally can. I just didn't want to almost like confuse two related issues. This is just a div. Hi, Sue. Maybe I will write the post. I tend to do that kind of thing, especially when something's on my mind heavily. But yeah, moving on to this positioning thing. All this is a button, and the button has a pop-out information div that's somewhere else in the DOM the only way that they are tied together is through anchor positioning. So we have this pop-out button. That's the anchor. That's where we want the additional information to be tied to. And then we have the pop-out information, which must be position absoluted. That screwed us up for a little bit, but it's got to be there, you know? And then in the case of support, it is anchored to the same named thing. Pop-out button is the anchor, and I'm saying, oh, go put yourself by that anchor. And the double dashes means it's a custom ident. It's not a custom property in this case, just a custom ident. But then the crucial part was that we are trying to, this is irrelevant. This is just saying, like, if you were using some JavaScript to position it, you could win over it by overriding what the JavaScript does. We're not using any JavaScript, so it doesn't really matter. I was illustrating a point. So then the position area says where you want it to be. So it's at the block end. That's the block is the vertical direction. So it's at the end of the vertical direction, and it's at the end of the inline position too. So that point right there where those 2 points touch, that's being handled by position area. And then I wanted not just one fallback, but multiple fallbacks, like things that can happen to push this not to block and inline end, but to a totally different area. And I think there was a couple of different ways to do this, but it seemed like the most robust and specific way was something called position try and at rule in CSS, which you have to give it a name of a custom ident. And those have different position areas. So if there's some kind of like problem with this position, and a problem would be like it renders part of itself off the screen, that's considered data loss. That's a problem. The browser's smart enough to know that it has some fallbacks that it's willing to try. It's like, okay, if the browser determines that this one is a problem, it can then try this one, and then it can then try this one. And like weirdly, you can style some other stuff in here too, although I tried to like change the background color and it wouldn't let me do that. So there's a limited subset of things that you can change with position try, and I'm not even sure what the list is, but it's not just position area. It can be other things. So what were we trying to do there? And then it's also there's this thing that comes up that I have not totally figured out in my brain yet, is like, when does it start trying these fallbacks? And it's like it can on first render of the page, or it can somehow seemingly like wait until later somehow. So this opens over here. Why is this? It's open because I'm forcing it to be open. But as I squish this down, I think at some point it's going to decide, hey, there's actually more room on the left than the right of this button. And it's just because I centered it and then I pushed it one direction, that it will flip at some point, I think, right? Won't it? Yeah. It's a little unclear when it decides to do that. And apparently it never flips back, but it can open over there. And it does at some point decide to flip directions. Maybe it's when it hits its minimum size or something like that. How did we give it any kind of minimum size? Not really. Oh, we did. No, we say we give it a max size, but not a min size. So I'm not sure what the algorithm is, but what is happening then is that the position area becomes bottom left instead of that. So we're using inline directions here. Would it make more sense? I think we should just use all inline instead of switching the two. Maybe there's bugs when you switch between logical properties and non-logical properties, maybe. So we still want it to be block end, but we would want this to be inline start. And theoretically, it's going to behave the same exact way when we refresh it. Eventually, it'll decide there's more room on the other side and flip. Okay. So then the second fallback is block end still, isn't it? What were we trying to say there? Yeah, block end center. And it never did that. And I don't know that we can fix that. I'm not prepared. I didn't get any further along. But at no point, even though when clearly there's a point where being centered probably would be the move, it never like makes that choice. And that's okay. But I kind of want to do a different fallback then and see, like, can we at least get 2 fallbacks going? I want to prove that it's possible to have multiple fallbacks. It seems like there is, but I've never seen it. Never seen it. So this, we could just, what I want to do is just make a ton of more paragraph elements. That's just one way to get scrolling. We could have just set a height somewhere or something, but now we got this going on and we can cause some vertical scrolling. We're going to need even more of them, darn it. You know, as a matter of fact, there's this new feature that we just fixed / shipped in this new editor that I bet you guys will think is cool. Div lang equals pug. What does that mean? It means I'm like aborting really quick into the syntax of the pug language. So I could write like for x. How do you write a for loop again? For x equals 0, x is less than, I don't know, 50, x plus plus. So run this loop 50 times, a paragraph with lorem ipsum text in it. Is that going to run? Or is there going to be a problem with pug? Why did you fail? Error parsing the body of the width expression. It's trying to do it. Do I have the syntax wrong? For loop in pug lang. Iteration. Where's a for loop? I don't even have a for loop in here. But there's that. What if I do that? Will you have... No. Maybe there's something wrong with this feature. Like we were just playing with it like yesterday, getting this to work. But it does recognize the language and it processed the file, but it's not putting the output in the HTML properly. All right. I will log that as a bug and fix it. But the idea is that like I wanted these like 50 lorem ipsum paragraphs in there that you could just ditch out to pug real quick and make it work. That will work. I'm sure it will work in the next day or two. We just need to shore up that little feature a little bit. So that's not going to work. But I could use Emmet to do it. I could go p times 40 or whatever. And inside of them is lorem tab. There we go. We have them there. It's just harder to update them or whatever. Okay, so now we got some vertical scrolling going on. The idea being that like maybe when it hits, it's already at the bottom though. I want to have it so that like you scroll down and it hits a vertical edge and then flips vertical positioning too. So what do? Put it lower. I could put it at the bottom and then when it hits the top it works. Can I just put it in the middle somewhere? That would be kind of satisfying, wouldn't it? I'll just remove this and I'll put it like a bunch of P's down. Yeah, later on, kick. So there it is. Oh, that was funny. It was like it rendered and then came back. So that's fine. So if it's at there and it hits the bottom, I want it to flip to the top. That seems reasonable too. In fact, it seems a little reasonable that CSS would just deal with this for us, but I'm not seeing how that works. So if that's something it can do, let me know. So the second try then would be like block start inline end or something. when we could even make a third. Let's see how satisfying this can be. Position try 3, block start in line start, and then comma separate a third value. I know we're asking for the moon here. It feels like that should work though. So in our heads, what should happen is that the default is that it renders below, but it immediately switched to the top because the below was unfeasible, you know? And then it should switch sides to the other side. Oh, this is funky because of the reflow of all the text. But there it flips the other side. So we finally did it. We finally proved that multiple position tries can actually work. So it feels like that's actually reasonable to have at least 3 fallbacks that both switch left and right or inline direction and switch top and bottom that direction. So if you're trying to ship like a pretty robust anchor positioning fallback, you'd probably want all 4 of these things. And it almost seems like there should be shorthand for exactly what I've written, and maybe there is. I just am not super sure if there is or not. But I like that. It's kind of cool. Oh, look, we can watch it happen. Boop. Oh my gosh. Boop. There's the fallbacks right there. Boop. Boop. I don't know why it does that one necessarily. That's pretty satisfying. So I think I'm satisfied with the progress there a little bit. What I'd want to do is like clean this up and make it a little bit more look like an app, like a real situation. And I think we probably should convert it to the popover syntax too. Instead of in our JavaScript, we're just toggling an open class. That's probably not appropriate. It's probably not too difficult to wire up that button to actually use the popover APIs and stuff and use that and still do some anchor positioning on this thing. And then kind of more clearly document, I guess, when and why it decides to switch. And the fact that it doesn't do it until it's like visible in weird ways. Ooh, that was a little flashy, that one. I don't know. This one is an odd one, though. It's like, what is it going to decide? To move to the top or the left? And it's like, I'll move to the left. And it knows it can move to the left because on the left there's more room and thus it's shorter. That is a fascinating fallback. It's the right one, I guess. But at no point does it switch back to the tall one, you know? So the algorithms are a little funky there. Oh, my freaking head is in the way. I think that rules. That's really cool. So we'll use popover on that. But for now, we'll leave it alone, huh? And then we'll call this something smarter, like pop-up info pop-up with anchor positioning and multiple fallbacks. That's the goal anyway. So that's cool. So we made some progress there. We finished Turtle. We made a little progress on anchor positioning. And then this one was freaking me out too. We remember I told you we were going to add Astro to a site, and we vibe coded our way through it, which was fun. This camera's freaking out. Wake up, dude. That worked fine. So let me share that right quick. What if I do share current application? It becomes cursor, yeah? Is what I have open. And I have the My Portfolio project open. And it did just like a perfectly fine job of converting it to Astra. I think we did minor interventions, if anything, really. And then it looks good, right? So if you go npm run, what are the commands we have again? Npm run dev will give us a developer mode. And if I click that, option click it or whatever, it'll open that, which is super neat and all. And I guess that's fine. I was thinking of, cleaning all this up and making it a little bit more reasonable in which to demonstrate to a beginner, because this is the third part in a blog series. Like, what's the point of having it on Git? It's because you can commit changes and then people can see those changes and you can run tests against those changes, and it's pretty nice, right? So we got all that working, but then when we committed the changes to GitHub, they of course went to GitHub just fine, and then Netlify picked it up, and then this is what our site looks like on Netlify, which is totally broken. So it's one of those things where like, would a beginner get confused by that? Almost certainly, but it's not really in the code yet anyway. What Netlify should do with this, because we went from totally static files to a build process. And I think the problem is that that Netlify here doesn't really know that we did that. That maybe we started with Astro or without Astro and added Astro. Look at it. Somehow knows it's Astro now. I have no idea how it would know that. It must just look at the structure of files and make a guess. But it knows apparently, but it didn't update anything in regards to where the site should be served from and how it should build and stuff. So continuous deployment, I think, is what we're interested in here. Yeah, look at it. It doesn't know like where the files should be served from. In fact, I would almost expect it to not have anything at all. Like, what is being served? If I click over to cursor again, if you just served exactly these files, well, I guess it would have this index.html file. So it would still have the HTML, it just wouldn't be styled. It would be looking for this and it wouldn't know how to find it, because where is that file? It's buried in source and all this. It's not being linked up properly. So that explains what we're looking at when we look at this. Yes, it can find the HTML, but it can't find any other resources. That is not the HTML file we're trying to serve. We're trying to serve out of the dist folder, and I'll show you what I mean. Not that you all know this, but I'm thinking through it from a very beginner perspective here. npm run build will then run the Astro build, and look, a dist folder will show up, and that's the index.html file that we should be serving, the one that Astro actually builds. So I think we just need to tell Netlify that. We need to say, yeah, the base directory still is just the base directory. I don't think we need to change that. It should just be / or whatever. The package directory, I don't think we need to mess with that, but the build command is npm run build, and then the publish directory is dist. We're not using functions or anything. Do we care that our logs are public? That's funny that that's a default. I don't even know that was even possible. Active builds or stop builds. That's kind of cool that you can be like, hey, chill with the builds for a minute. So if we change that, can we force a deployment? Is that a thing you can do on Netlify, or do you have to push something? You'd think it could run it. Deploys. Deploy settings. Lock. Install Lighthouse for performance. That seems unusual. Can you force one? You'd think you'd be able to. You'd think there'd be like a run build trigger deploy. Heck yeah. Deploy project or without cache. We should have probably picked without cache, I guess, but you can trigger a build. That's cool. So now, just like we could locally, when we ran npm run build, Netlify should grab this project from GitHub and build it. And then our new settings should work here. And then theoretically, this overview is now correct. Yeah, look at that. And that's like a, oops, kill the dead one, I guess. I don't need either of these, really. It is a little satisfying to look at, though. And then, oh, look at that. It's at mycoolpersonalportfolio.netlify.app, which certainly is a real domain. But part of the blog post, the idea is going to be like buying a domain and hooking it up. So I do need to kind of decide, like because that's the point of the article. It's like it's the last step. You got a build process. You got a site building tool. Your code's on GitHub. You're pretty much doing what all professional developers do at this point. But because it's at .netlify.app, it's not really a real domain name. You don't really super duper control that domain name. Control, I guess that's what the article should be about a little bit, is that control really matters with domain names. So it's cool to buy and own one. You can apparently do that directly through this. my cool personal dot. Is Portfolio a TLD these days? It's not, or if it is, it's not supported by Netlify. But you could just buy one. I'm not actually going to do it right now, I don't think. But that would be in the article too, is that like now that you own that, you like really, really own that personally. Like even though you buy it through Netlify, presumably they have all the tools in there. I know that they do to transfer it elsewhere, point it elsewhere, do something. It's like you don't have to use Netlify with the domain you bought from Netlify. They're actually just trying to help you. Oh my God, look at that. .finance renews at $82. .loans renews at $142. Get out of here. That's wild. I want one that costs $100 and renews at $1. Is there anything like that? That would be fun. Like a .Robinhood or something. Why is nobody ever telling me my face is right in the middle of content? Jeepers, y'all. Gotta tell me this stuff. Cool. But I might show this in a theoretical article, but I probably would buy it elsewhere, like from Pork Bun or something like that, just to show like, hey, maybe you want to keep all your domain names like elsewhere, or detach the idea of hosting in domain names. I don't know. This will almost certainly be easier to do, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of detaching hosting and domain names. I don't know why. Is that weird? Do you all think the same way? So that was pretty satisfying. I guess we fixed that problem. We fixed the turtle. We fixed the anchor positioning. So we made some good progress here on things. I think in future streams, I'm going to keep it to one topic. It's just I had so many tabs open and it was freaking me out. So in Arc here, I'm like, I need to organize these tabs into folders. I know I shouldn't even be on Arc at all. I do need to find something to switch to, but it's little features like that. Like, I should organize these tabs. And of course it has the feature I want immediately. Is nice. I have these 4 open tabs as potential future streaming ideas. Like I said, future streams will be probably focused to one topic, meaning that I could edit it later into something more single topic useful. But that's what I got today. That's what I have on this beautiful Wednesday for you. So thanks for hanging out again. Trying to do this every day if I can, but I will definitely be on vacation next week. But hopefully I can do tomorrow. All right, see you. Bye.